It was a warm morning in California. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting a soft golden light over the city of Mountain View. The streets were quiet, and the only sound was the gentle rustling of trees in the breeze. Inside the Google headquarters, something unusual was about to happen. Sundar Pichai stood near the glass window of his office, lost in thought. He had received a call 3 days ago. The Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, was coming to visit. Not just a simple visit, but something more personal. They were going to talk about technology, the future of India, and the bridge between two worlds, Silicon Valley and the streets of Chennai, where Sundar had grown up. But Sundar's mind was not on the meeting. It was on his mother, Lakshmi Pichai. She had arrived the night before, wearing her simple cotton sari, carrying a worn leather handbag, and walking with the grace only mothers have. Her eyes still sparkled the same way they did when she read to him under the dim light of their small home in India. He had invited her to be part of the meeting, not because of protocol, not because of pride, but because something inside him said she needed to be there. She had shaped who he was. Every word, every value, every sacrifice she had made had built the man who would now sit across from one of the world's most powerful leaders. As he walked to the private lounge where his mother waited, he paused at the door. He could hear her humming an old Tamil lullaby, the same one she used to sing when he couldn't sleep as a boy. He smiled, then opened the door. "Amma," he said gently. She looked up, her eyes soft. "Did you sleep well, Kenna?" He nodded. But the truth was, he hadn't. Something about this day felt heavier than usual, not stressful, but deep, like it carried meaning he couldn't yet explain. Hours passed. The building buzzed with quiet excitement. The Prime Minister's motorcade was close, security was tight, cameras were ready. But inside Sundar's private meeting room, there was only calm. Lakshmi sat quietly in the corner, wearing the same sandalwood bindi she had worn for years. She didn't ask questions. She didn't pretend to understand the importance of the day. But she carried her presence like a light, gentle, steady, and strong. When Prime Minister Modi arrived, the room stood. Sundar greeted him with respect. They shook hands, smiled for the cameras, and then moved into the private chamber, where only 3 people would sit: the Prime Minister, Sundar Pichai, and Lakshmi Pichai. What happened next was not part of the plan. Modi looked at Sundar, then turned to Lakshmi. "May I?" he asked softly, pointing to the seat beside her. Lakshmi smiled and nodded. She had seen many things in life, but this was new. A boy from her small street in Chennai now sat beside the leader of 1 billion people, and she was in the middle. They began talking about India's digital mission, about rural villages and smart cities, about youth and coding, about dreams and data. Sundar answered with confidence, his voice clear and thoughtful. But then, something shifted. Modi looked at Lakshmi and asked, "Majay, what was Sundar like as a boy?" Sundar froze. His mouth opened slightly. He hadn't expected this. Neither had his mother. Lakshmi blinked. Then she smiled. "He was quiet," she said, "but curious, always asking questions, not big ones, small ones, like why ants walk in a line, or why rain sounds different on a tin roof." Modi chuckled. "Those are the best questions." Lakshmi nodded. Then, without warning, her eyes turned soft. Her voice slowed. "There was one day," she said, "that I never forget." Sundar looked at her. Something in his chest tightened. "He was 10, she said. "It was raining. Our roof had a leak. I was trying to cook with one hand and catch the dripping water with another. We had little food that day. Just enough rice for him." She paused. "I told him to eat, but he pushed the plate toward me and said, 'You eat first. I'll eat after you.' Smile." The room fell silent. Modi's eyes softened. Sundar's throat tightened. Lakshmi continued, "He didn't care about the rain or the food. He just wanted to see me smile. That's when I knew, my son would go far. Not because he was smart, but because he cared. Sundar lowered his head. The memory came rushing back. He remembered the smell of wet earth, the sound of rain, the hunger, and most of all his mother's tired face trying to smile through it all. Modi said nothing at first. Then, in a voice filled with calm, he said, "Maji, you did not raise a CEO, you raised a light." Lakshmi didn't understand fully what he meant, but Sundar did. And in that moment, something shifted inside him. Not pride, not fame, something deeper. Gratitude. He reached out, gently held his mother's hand, and whispered, "Thank you." The press had taken their photos, flashes had gone off, headlines were already being written. Outside, the world buzzed with excitement. But inside the private room at Google headquarters, silence held the air like a secret. A soft chime rang from the hallway. The assistant leaned in and whispered, "Everything went perfectly. The press has left. You're alone now." Prime Minister Modi smiled. "Good, now we can talk without the noise." Lakshmi Pichai shifted slightly in her seat. Her back was straight, her hands rested in her lap. She had no script, no idea what came next. But something inside her said, this moment would be remembered forever. Modi leaned forward. "Sundar," he said gently, "you have built something powerful. But I want to talk about something more important than success." Sundar looked up. He was listening with full attention now. Modi's single quotes as voice softened. When a person reaches the top, the world only sees the crown. They forget the steps, the cuts, the bruises it took to climb. Lakshmi listened carefully. Her fingers tightened just a little. Modi continued, "Your story gives hope, not because you're a CEO, but because you're still the boy who wanted his mother to smile." Sundar felt the words like a slow wave. They weren't just praise. They were a reminder. "Tell me something, Sundar," Modi asked. "Have you ever wanted to quit?" Sundar looked down for a moment. Then he answered honestly. Double quotes, "Yes, more than once." Modi nodded, not surprised. "What stopped you?" Sundar turned toward his mother. Lakshmi turned to him, eyes filled with quiet emotion. "Every time I thought I couldn't go on," Sundar said slowly, "I remembered her, waking up before sunrise to pack my lunch, walking in the heat to get me books, going without a fan so I could study. I couldn't quit, because she never did." There was a long pause. Lakshmi's eyes glistened, but no tear fell. She held her emotions with grace, like she had done all her life. Modi then leaned toward her. "Maji," he said respectfully, "what gave you strength during those days?" Lakshmi thought for a moment. "A promise," she said. "To who?" Modi asked. "To my own mother," she replied. "Before she passed, I told her I would raise my children with love, no matter how poor we were. I kept that promise, even when the nights were long, even when I was alone." The silence in the room grew deep again. Then she added something else. "When Sundar was 15, she said, he got sick. We had no car. The hospital was 5 miles away, so I carried him." Modi's eyebrows raised slightly. "You carried him?" "Yes," she said, "on my back, barefoot. It was summer. The road burned, but I kept walking." Sundar closed his eyes. That memory had faded, but now it came back with painful clarity. He remembered the dizziness, the sun, her back soaked in sweat, her voice singing softly to calm him. "I reached the hospital," she said quietly, "and then fainted." Modi looked at her for a long moment. Then he looked at Sundar. "Do you understand now?" he asked. Sundar nodded, his voice low. "I do. Your mother," Modi said, "is the reason the world has Google." Lakshmi chuckled softly, a humble sound. "I just made sure he had tea in the morning," she said, but her son knew better. She had given him far more than tea. She had given him strength, and that strength had become a bridge between worlds. Then came the moment no one expected. Modi stood up and said, I would like to visit your childhood home. Sundar looked surprised. Sir? Yes, Modi replied. Not as a prime minister, but as someone who wants to see the beginning of the journey. Lakshmi's eyes widened. It is very small, only 2 rooms. Those rooms, Modi said, built a giant. Sundar looked at his mother. Her face was filled with something he hadn't seen in a long time. Wonder, not pride, not shock, just simple wonder. If we go, she said, I'll have to clean the kitchen. It's dusty. Modi smiled. We won't mind. Sundar laughed softly. She's serious. She'll mop it twice. They all laughed. But behind the laughter was something more, a moment of healing, of recognition, of going back to the roots. Modi then asked Lakshmi, what was the hardest day of your life? Lakshmi didn't answer right away. Then she said, it was the day Sundar left for America. Both men turned toward her. I was proud, she said, but my heart was breaking. I packed him food, gave him blessings, and when he turned the corner, I broke down and cried for hours. Why didn't you stop him? Modi asked. Because mothers don't build cages, she said. They build wings. A quiet hush fell across the room. Sundar reached over, took her hand again, and held it tight. In that moment, there were no titles, no cameras, no power. Only 3 people sitting together, sharing truths that had waited years to be spoken, and for the first time in years, Lakshmi Pichai felt fully seen. The heat in Chennai wrapped around everything like a warm blanket. The streets buzzed with scooters, tea vendors, and schoolchildren in blue uniforms. Old walls carried the faded colors of time, and the scent of jasmine and curry leaves danced in the air. It had been many years since Lakshmi Pichai walked down this narrow lane. The houses were close together, neighbors waved from balconies, and children played with paper balls made from used notebooks. But now something was different. 2 black SUVs slowly rolled down the lane. People stepped out of their homes, curious. Phones came out. Whispers turned into gasps. That's Sundar, someone said. And that's the Prime Minister. Crowds gathered, not with noise, but with awe. This was no parade. It was something more sacred. Homecoming. Lakshmi stepped out of the car first. Her eyes scanned the street. Nothing had changed. The corner tea stall was still there. The wall with her son's pencil drawings was still visible, and at the end of the lane stood the house, small, 2 rooms. Blue paint faded, a metal gate that creaked. Sundar followed behind, quiet. His expensive shoes crunched the dust of his childhood. He looked around with a soft smile, taking it all in: the cracks, the wires, the plants growing through the bricks. Modi stood with them, not as a leader, but as a guest. His security team stayed respectfully behind. Lakshmi took a step forward. This way, she said. She pushed open the gate. It made the same sound it always had. Inside, the house smelled of old books, turmeric, and sunlight. A low ceiling, concrete floor. A small calendar still hung on the wall from years ago. Sundar stepped into the room where he had once studied. The corner where he sat cross-legged, reading a borrowed science book. The shelf where his mother kept his medals, now covered in dust. He touched the wall. I used to measure my height here, he said softly. Every birthday. Modi smiled. Let's measure again. So laughed. I've grown a little. Lakshmi brought out a small steel tray. Please sit, she said. You're serving us? Modi asked, surprised. Of course, she said. You've come home. She poured tea, the same way she always had. Sugar first, then milk, then tea. She handed the cups with steady hands. As they sipped, a voice called from outside. Lakshmi, Auntie. She turned and saw her old neighbor Meenakshi standing at the door with tears in her eyes. You really brought your son back, she said. He came on his own, Lakshmi replied. Soon more neighbors gathered. Old friends, teachers, the postman, even the man who once fixed their broken fan. Modi stood and said, "Would it be all right if I said something?" The crowd nodded. He stepped outside and spoke simply. "When I first became Prime Minister," he said, "people told me India's future would come from big cities, big factories, and big dreams. But today, I have seen that the future also comes from a small house like this, from a mother like this, and from values like these." The crowd was silent. Modi continued, "This house may be small, but its light reached the world." Tears filled many eyes, including Sundar's single quotes. Then, Lakshmi did something unexpected. She stepped forward, pointed to a crack on the wall, and said, "This crack happened one night during a storm. The roof leaked. Sundar was 8. I thought the wall would fall. What happened?" Someone asked. "He stood in front of it," she said, arms wide. Said Uma, "If it falls on me." The crowd gasped. "He was just a boy," she added, "but he protected me like a man." Modi looked at Sundar, then back at the crowd. "Do you see?" he said. "This is what true strength looks like." A small boy in the crowd raised his hand shyly. "Uncle Sundar," he said, "can I become like you?" Sundar bent down and smiled. "You can become more than me," he said. "Start by loving your Oma." The boy nodded, and just like that, something beautiful bloomed in that moment. Hope. Then Lakshmi looked at her old kitchen and said, "I should have made food." A neighbor said, "We'll all cook together." And they did. In less than an hour, 20 people were cooking. Someone brought idealists, someone brought chutney, someone brought sweets, and soon, everyone was sitting on the floor, eating like a family. Modi sat cross-legged, eating with his hands. "This," he said, "is the most honest meal I've had in years." Sundar looked around. The walls were still cracked. The fan still squeaked. But something was full his heart. He looked at his mother, who was laughing with her friends, and he knew this was a moment he would carry forever. A reporter, who had quietly followed the crowd, asked Sundar, "Was this your proudest moment?" He looked at her and answered, "No. My proudest moment was when I saw my Uma's old slippers by the door, exactly where she always left them." "Why?" the reporter asked. "Because it means," he said, "she never changed." And in that moment, the whole world watching understood greatness does not begin with power. It begins with love. The sun had begun to set over Chennai. Warm orange light touched the tops of the buildings and the corners of Sundar's childhood home. The crowd had slowly gone. Laughter had faded into quiet. Inside the small house, the three of them sat together soon, his mother Lakshmi and Prime Minister Modi. The plates were cleared, the teacups empty. Lakshmi slowly stood and said, "There's something I want to show you." She walked to the bedroom, tiny and filled with memories. There was a wooden trunk at the foot of the old bed. Its surface was scratched, its corners worn. She opened it gently. Inside were neatly folded saris, a steel mirror, and a stack of yellowing papers tied with a cotton string. She picked one envelope and walked back. "I never showed this to anyone," she said quietly. Sundar looked puzzled. "What is it?" Lakshmi held the letter like it was made of glass. "It's from your father, written just before he passed." A hush fell across the room. "You were 17, she said. "You were studying for your final exams. I didn't want to break you. So I hid this letter." Sundar stared at the envelope. His father had passed after a short illness. They all thought it was sudden, but now he knew there was more. "Open it," Lakshmi whispered. His hands trembled slightly as he opened the brittle paper. The words were written in black ink, in his father's tidy handwriting. He read aloud, "My dear Sundar, I may not be there when you read this, but I need you to remember what I say. Life is not about what you build. It is about what you carry. Carry kindness, carry humility, carry your mother's dreams. You will face the world, you will win, and you will fall, but never forget where your feet first touched the ground. The world may one day know your name, but I will always know your heart. And if you ever feel alone, look at your mother. In her silence, you will find strength. Love always, Appleby. The time he finished, his voice had broken. The silence in the room grew heavy. Modi looked away respectfully. Lakshmi wiped a tear from her cheek, her fingers steady even in sadness. Sundar folded the letter and held it to his chest. I never knew he wrote this, he said softly. I kept it safe, Lakshmi said. All these years, it was his last gift. Modi spoke gently. Not just to you, Sundar. To all of us. There was a deep stillness after that, a kind of peace that comes after truth is finally spoken. Then Lakshmi stood once again and walked back to the trunk. There's one more thing, she said. She returned holding a small, faded photo. Sundar took it and looked closely. It was a picture of him as a boy, standing barefoot with his father beside a broken bicycle. They were smiling. In the background, his mother was peeking from the doorway, laughing. This was the day the bicycle broke, Lakshmi said. Your father couldn't fix it. You said, it's okay, Appa. I like walking with you more. Sundar closed his eyes. That memory had long been buried. He cried that night. She said. He said, my son doesn't need things, he needs us. Modi placed a hand on Sundar's shoulder. Your journey was never about reaching the top. It was about remembering each step. Outside, the stars were beginning to appear. Lakshmi lit a small lamp near the picture of her husband and said a prayer. Modi watched in silence, then said, Lakshmiji, today the whole of India has seen the power of a mother, and the heart of a father who saw the future before it arrived. Lakshmi didn't answer. She just folded her hands and smiled. Then something beautiful happened. The neighbor's child, the same little boy who had spoken earlier, returned. In his hand was a small drawing. Uncle Sundar, he said, I made this. Sundar took the paper. It was a simple sketch. A small house, a smiling mother, a boy with a backpack, and in big letters, written in shaky handwriting, were the words, Uma makes dreams real. Sundar looked at the boy and asked, can I keep this? The boy nodded, eyes wide. I'll put it in my office, Sundar said, so I never forget. And in that moment, something shifted again, not just in him, but in everyone watching. The house wasn't just a building anymore. It had become a symbol of love, of sacrifice, of memory. Modi stood and said, the world will speak of innovation and technology. But today, we will speak of a letter, a meal, a walk, and a woman who never stopped believing. Lakshmi turned to Sundar. Your father would be proud. Sundar looked into her eyes. I am proud because of you both. The next morning came softly. Birds chirped from power lines, and the scent of filter coffee floated through the house. Lakshmi had woken early, just like she always did. She quietly swept the floor, lit a small lamp, and placed 2 cups of coffee on the table, one for Sundar and one for her late husband. Just like old times, Sundar stepped out of the bedroom, still holding the letter from the night before. He had barely slept. His father's words echoed in his mind. Carry kindness, carry humility, carry your mother's dreams. Amma, he said, was Appa always this thoughtful? Lakshmi smiled. He didn't speak much, but he noticed everything, and he never forgot what mattered. Sundar looked around the room again. Everything felt smaller now, but not in a bad way. It felt closer, warmer, more real. He walked to the study corner, the place where he had once read under a small yellow bulb. He brushed his hand against the old shelf and felt something strange, a soft hollow knock behind the wood. He paused. Amma, did this shelf always sound like that? Lakshmi looked up. What do you mean? He knocked again. It sounded hollow-like. There was something behind the wall. He gently pushed the shelf aside. Dust rose into the air. Behind it, the wall was not flat. There was a wooden board, poorly nailed, like someone had tried to cover it long ago. "May I?" he asked. Lakshmi nodded. Sundar pulled the board free. Behind it was a small cavity. Inside it lay a dusty wooden box, wrapped in an old towel. He carefully took it out and placed it on the table. The moment he opened it, he froze. Inside were 2 notebooks, one wrapped in plastic, the other filled with neat handwriting, and at the very bottom, a sealed envelope addressed to him. Lakshmi looked at it with shock. "I didn't know about this." Sundar opened the envelope. "Sundar, if you are reading this, then your mother has shown you the first letter. But this one is different. This is not advice. This is a challenge. I was working on something before. I got sick. It was a project. A simple idea for helping children learn using small, solar-powered devices. I couldn't finish it, but I knew you might one day have the power to bring it to life. If you believe this is still important, I leave it in your hands. And remember, great ideas don't need big money. They need big hearts. Yours." A passenger stared at the notebook. It was filled with drawings, formulas, designs for small learning tablets powered by sunlight. Simple, cheap, and meant for villages, like the one he grew up in. "I had no idea he was working on this," he said, voice shaking. Lakshmi sat beside him, stunned. He was always writing at night. He said he wanted to help children who couldn't afford books. Modi had just arrived when he saw Sundar bent over the table, reading the pages with wide eyes. "What is this?" he asked. Sundar handed him the notebook and the letter. Modi read in silence, then looked up and said, "This idea, it could change lives." "It's simple," Sundar said, "but beautiful." Modi nodded. "The best ideas usually are." Sundar took a deep breath. "Sir," he said, "what if we built this? What if we started right here in the very street where my father dreamed it?" Modi looked at Lakshmi Pichai. He said, "Would you bless such a project?" Lakshmi nodded, slowly, eyes full. "If it helps even one child, then his dream is alive." Modi placed a hand on Sundar's shoulder. "Let's do it." Word spread quickly. Within days, engineers from Google India arrived. They set up in a local school nearby. Sundar named the project Lightbox after the lamp his father used while writing the designs. They created small, affordable solar tablets for learning. No internet needed, no wires, just sunlight and stories. The first child to receive one was the same little boy who gave Sundar the drawing. "This is for you," Sundar said, handing him the device. The boy pressed the button. It lit up and spoke in Tamil, telling a story about a curious boy and a loving mother. The boy's eyes lit up. "Is this real?" he asked. "It is now," Sundar said. Soon, other children lined up, each one holding a little box of light. "Teachers!" cried. Parents folded their hands in thanks. Lakshmi watched quietly from the doorway. "Your father would be proud," she whispered again. But then, as the children played, a man approached. He looked older, tired, holding a cane. "Lakshmi?" he asked softly. She turned, her eyes widened. "Murugan?" "Yes," he said. "I was your husband's old friend. We worked together at the factory. He told me about the project, asked for my help, but I didn't come. I was scared." "You were young," she said. Double quotes. "No," he replied. "I was selfish." He handed her a rusted box. "This is yours," he said. "Your husband gave it to me. He said, if I don't return, give this to Lakshmi." I was too ashamed to come. Sundar opened the box. Inside was a gold chain, a photo of their wedding, and a note. "For the day she stands alone, to remind her she never truly is." Lakshmi covered her mouth. Tears fell freely now. Murugan stepped back. "I am sorry." She looked at him and said gently, "Thank you." Because even broken promises, when kept at last, can bring peace. The air was still in the small Chennai home. The sound of laughter from the children with their new light boxes echoed faintly in the distance. Sundar sat on the edge of his childhood bed, holding the 2 letters from his father in one hand and the rusted box in the other. Lakshmi stood near the window, watching the sky turn soft with the orange glow of evening. Her eyes were calm, but her heart was heavy. Modi entered quietly, stepping around the shoes left by the doorway. "They said you haven't left the room," he said gently. Sundar looked up. "I've been thinking." Modi nodded. "About what?" "About going back," Sundar said. "To Silicon Valley, to the company, to the life." He paused. "And also, about staying." Modi sat down across from him. "What does your heart say?" Sundar looked at the letters again. "It says, maybe it's time to do more than lead a company. Maybe it's time to lead a cause." Modi didn't speak at first. Then he said, "Lakshmi ji told me once that when you were 10, you said you wanted to fix things. Not machines, not computers, but people's lives." Sundar smiled faintly. "I remember. Maybe this is your moment," Modi said. "Your father planted the seed, your mother watered it, and now you have the power to grow it." Sundar stood and walked to the door. The street was alive. Children were playing with the solar tablets. An old man was teaching a girl to read. 2 women were laughing while learning math from a voice on the screen. He stepped outside. Neighbors waved, cameras flashed, but Sundar wasn't thinking about news. He was thinking about how much could change from one simple idea. He saw the little boy, again the same one who gave him the drawing. "Uncle Sundar," the boy shouted, running toward him. He held up the tablet. "Today, it taught me a story about a bird who flew across the ocean. Is that real?" Sundar knelt down. "Yes," he said. "And do you know how that bird flew so far?" The boy shook his head. "Because he believed he could," Sundar said. The boy smiled and ran back. Modi joined him at the gate. "They will ask questions when you go back," Modi said. "The world will want to know what you plan next." Sundar looked around, then said, "Then I'll give them an answer." The next day, Sundar held a press conference not from California, not from a fancy stage, but from the school rooftop in Chennai, where the new Solar Learning Center had just been opened. Journalists from around the world were present. A reporter asked, "Will you return as CEO, or step down?" Sundar replied, "I'm not stepping down, but I'm stepping forward." He paused. "My role as a leader in technology will continue, but from now on, a big part of my time, my energy, and my heart will be here." The crowd murmured. "We are launching the Lightbox initiative across India," he said, "and soon, across the world. We'll reach every child who learns under a street lamp, every teacher who teaches without chalk, every mother who dreams without tools." Then he added something that made the room go silent. "Technology is not power, it is a promise that the future belongs to all of us, not just the lucky." Lakshmi watched from the back, her hands folded quietly. Beside her stood Murugan, eyes filled with pride. Later that night, Sundar sat on the roof beside his mother. "Amma," he said, "thank you for showing me what matters." Lakshmi looked at him. "You found your voice," she said. "Your father would have smiled. He smiled too, and you." "I already did," she whispered. They sat in silence, watching the stars rise. Then Sundar reached into his pocket and pulled out the boy's drawing, the one that read "Amma makes dreams real." He folded it gently and placed it in his shirt pocket. Modi came to say goodbye. He placed a hand on Lakshmi's shoulder. "Thank you," he said, "for raising a son the world could follow." Lakshmi bowed her head. "Thank you for seeing the story behind the name." As the cars pulled away, Sundar looked at the lane one last time. The cracks in the wall, the sound of laughter, the smell of old books and hope. He didn't say goodbye, because something inside him knew he wasn't leaving. He was finally home. 3 months had passed since Sundar Pichai's return to his childhood home. What began as a short visit became something larger, a movement, a memory reborn, a light that refused to go out. Lakshmi still lived in the same small house, the same creaky gate, the same lamp near her late husband's photo. But now, each morning when she opened her door, she saw something beautiful. Children walking to the learning center wearing bright blue school bags that read Lightbox Project. Teachers standing with pride as they watched solar tablets light up the faces of students who had never touched a screen before. And in the middle of it all stood Sundar. He still wore the same calm expression, still spoke with kindness. But something in his eyes had changed. Not tired, not proud, just peaceful. One afternoon, he sat with Lakshmi under the banyan tree near the house, the same tree where he once played cricket with broken sticks and rubber balls. "Amma," he said, "do you think Appa knows?" Lakshmi smiled. "He knew even before you did." Then she handed him a small envelope. "What's this?" he asked. "Something I wrote but never gave you," she said. He opened it carefully. Inside was a piece of paper, soft from age. "Dear Sundar, if you ever feel the world moving too fast, come home. If your heart grows heavy, come home. If you ever forget how strong you are, come home. Because no matter how far you go, this will always be your place to rest. Love, Emma." He folded the letter slowly, eyes filled with quiet tears. "I think I'll stay a little longer," he said. "As long as you need," she replied. News spread that the Lightbox Project had reached 10 villages, then 50. Sundar visited each one not as a leader, but as a listener. He sat with mothers who cried when their children read their first word. He hugged fathers who had walked miles just to say thank you. And then came an unexpected letter. It was from a girl named Vaishnav, age 9, from a village in a "Dear Uncle Sundar, I used to think I was invisible. No one saw me. But now, my tablet talks to me, teaches me, believes in me. So I believe in me too. One day, I will make something for the world, and maybe someone will smile like I do now. Thank you, Sundar." Read the letter aloud to a crowd during a visit. The room fell silent. Then he said, "If even one child feels seen, then every long night, every hard choice, was worth it." The world watched from afar. Leaders, reporters, citizens. They asked, how did this happen? How did a man from a small street change the path of so many lives? And the answer always came back to one name, Lakshmi. She never gave speeches, never asked for praise. But her hands had packed the first lunch. Her voice had sung the first lullaby. Her hope had built the first wall of belief. And one morning, the President of India called. "We would like to honor your mother," he told Sundar. "She won't accept," Sundar said. "She believes everything she did was just being a mother." "Then we will honor that," the President replied. At a quiet ceremony attended by leaders and teachers and students, Lakshmi Pichai was awarded the nation's highest civilian award for contribution to education and inspiration. As she stood at the podium, she said only one thing: "I didn't teach the world. I just raised a boy who remembered his roots." The room stood in applause, and in the back, Sundar clapped the loudest. Night. Back home, Sundar sat with her on the rooftop. "AMMA, he said. "Do you miss the old days?" She looked at the stars. "No. The days change, but love stays the same." He took a deep breath. "I've decided to return to Silicon Valley. Part-time, I'll lead the company from there, but my heart will stay here." Lakshmi smiled. "Then you've learned to walk with 2 feet, one in the future, and one in your past." The wind blew softly. The streets below were quiet, but the learning center lights were still on. One by one, they stayed on, not just in Chennai, not just in India, but in every place where a child looked up from a solar screen and felt, for the first time, that they mattered. And on Sundar's desk in California, beside the laptops and glass walls, there sat one simple drawing: a house, a smiling mother, and a sentence written in shaky handwriting, "Amma makes dreams real."